What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Fans and Friends Podcast, guys. You're in for a treat today. Today we're going to do college segment. We're going to do it a little different, okay? We're going to call this the College Rundown Week 8, okay? Week 8 College Rundown. Everything you need to know college football coming up. Let's go. Hey, for our game of the week in college football, we got number 5 Georgia, 5-1, traveling to number 1 Texas, 6-0. Two heavy hitters gonna match off in this one. Oh, is we in for a doozy? We're in for a doozy. Hey, UGA beat Mississippi State last week. Texas beat Oklahoma last week. So both teams took care of business last week, avoided those traps, and they're ready to match up this week. Texas has the number 1 defense in the land as far as yards a game and scoring points a game. They're giving up a paltry 6.3 points a game. So you're barely getting that extra point. You might get a touchdown, but you ain't gonna get that extra point against Texas. That's what they averaging. Okay, we'll see if Georgia, looking to keep pace in the SEC with Texas, can do something about that strong defense, okay? You got Carson Beck leading the Georgia Bulldogs with 18 passing and 15 touchdowns on the year. Trevor Etienne, the transfer from the Gators, 335 yards with 4 TDs. You got Arian Smith leading the receiving corps with 412 and 3 touchdown receptions on the year. Texas, led by Quinn Ewers, looking to come. Well, he came back from injury last week, looking to see if he can get a hold on that position and sharpen up his tools this week against Georgia. He said he's going to need to play better. We're going to see. Maybe Texas might need to use him and Arch Manning to throw that ball and beat these Georgia Bulldogs. We're going to find out. You got Quintravian Wisner, 278 rushing yards and 2 TDs on the season, and Isaiah Bond, 369 yards receiving and 3 TDs leading Texas. Texas have played against some inexperienced quarterbacks on the year, so we're going to see what they can do with Carson Beck, the preseason All-American. That is the game of the week. Number 5 Georgia at Texas Longhorns. Let's go. Moving right along into the next segment, we got the top 10 and the best of the rest. Number 1 is Texas. Like we said, they're going to be hosting Georgia on Saturday. Number 2, we got Oregon at 6-0. They're going to be going to Purdue. Face 1-5 Purdue. Not going to be looking good for Purdue. Penn State sitting at number 3. They've got a bye. Ohio State dropped down to 4 after that loss to Oregon. They've got a bye. You got Georgia and Texas. Georgia's number 5. They're going to play number 1 Texas. Then you got number 6, Miami. Miami traveling to Louisville. Miami 6-0. Louisville 4-2. Miami fresh off that bye and that close win over Cal. Now they got Louisville, who had a tough matchup last 2 games. Miami had close matchups in their last 2 games. And Louisville played their last 3 games to less than a possession. So I'm expecting something close. All these are pointing to the signs that this game should be close, okay? Not a blowout. If you're a Miami fan, I'm sorry. Signs point to this being a close game. You got Cam Ward leading the second in the nation. Second in the nation with 2,219 passing yards and 20 TDs on the season. Xavier Restrepo, 585 receiving yards and 5 TDs for them Hurricanes. Don't forget about George out there on that edge, too. You got Tyler Shaw for Louisville, 1,674 passing with 14 TDs on the season. Isaac Brown got 508 yards rushing with 3 TDs. And Ja'Cory Brooks, 572 yards receiving and 6 teddy boards. Let's go. We're going to see who wins that close game right there between Miami and Louisville. Then number 7, you got Alabama at number 11, Tennessee. Both of those teams coming in 5-1. They call this game the third Saturday in October. The third Saturday in October, Alabama beats Tennessee, okay? That's a given. Bama beat South Carolina last week. Tennessee beat Florida last week. They both almost fell into that trap games because they're playing each other this week, but they both survived to see who's going to take care of business this week in Tennessee. Time is now for one of these teams. This game has big playoff implications, so somebody going to be in a tough situation to make the playoffs, and in the SEC, somebody going to be in a great position. So this game has big momentum. So, like that Miami game, I'm expecting a close game here. This one gonna go back and forth. So expect a close game and a fight to the finish in this one. You got Jaden Milroe with 1,483 yards passing and 12 TDs. You got Jam Miller running that thing for 360 and 5 TDs. You got Ryan Williams. Everybody know you got Ryan Williams with the painted fingernails, baby. 576 yards and 6 TDs on the season for Bama. Go Tide. You got Nico Iamaleava, 1,219 yards with 7 TDs for Tennessee. You got Dylan Sampson running that thing for an incredible 699 yards and 5 touchdowns on the season. Then you got Dante Thornton Jr. with 295 yards and 3 TDs for the Vols, looking to beat Alabama. Let's go. Then you got number 8 LSU 5-1 at 4-2 Arkansas. You got number 9 Iowa State at UCF. Iowa State 6-0. You got Virginia 4-2 at Clemson 5-1. Number 10. You got number 12 Notre Dame 5-1 playing at Georgia Tech. The Battle of the Golden Domes. Notre Dame has a Golden Dome and Georgia Tech has a Golden Dome. Who is gonna come up golden in that one? You got number 16 Indiana hosting Nebraska. Nebraska's 5-1. Indiana is still undefeated at 6-0. Not getting that respect that they want, but if they can beat Nebraska, they should jump into that top 10. You got Kansas State, they're 5-1. Fresh off that win over Colorado. They've got West Virginia. That's always a high-scoring affair when those two teams link up. For some reason, defenses disappear and offenses are here. So pay attention to that game. The over is looking good. I think it's at about 55 points. They'll get it. Trust me. If they don't get it, you got number 22 Illinois 5-1 hosting number 24 Michigan, who's 4-2. So that's always a battle. Illinois and Michigan, that's a big rivalry. So you got that game coming up. Now the best of the rest, the unranked teams. You got Colorado, everybody's favorite team that everybody watching and tracking. They 4-2. They go into Arizona to play the Wildcats 3-3. North Texas at Memphis. Both of those teams are 5-1, surprisingly. Somebody trying to crack the polls. We're going to see who get in there. You got James Madison, 5-1. They're still teetering on the brink, trying to get ranked. They're going against Georgia Southern, 4-2. Then you got Toledo at NIU, Northern Illinois. Both teams 4-2 on that day. And then you got Louisiana Raging Cajuns, 5-1, going against Coastal Carolina, who's 4-2. Then you got Arizona State, fresh off that upset over Utah last week. They are traveling to Cincinnati to play the Bearcats, 4-2. Guys, that was the coverage of the top 10 and the best of the rest. Next segment is the Small School Spotlight. Got to shine a light on some goddamn body. Got to shine a light on somebody. And this week, y'all in for another treat as number 1 meets number 2 in FCS football. Yeah, that number 1 team will be South Dakota State Jackrabbits coming in at 5-1, going against the North Dakota State Bison, who's number 2, and they're 6-1. That's the team that played Colorado at the beginning of the season, right? They back on ESPN. This game coming on ESPN 2 at 8 p.m. So you want to see some good slobber-knocking football, 1AA from some guys who, hey, going to be out there hungry, tune in to ESPN 2. You ain't going to be disappointed in this matchup right here, okay? We're going to see who wins this renewed rivalry. You got Cam Miller for North Dakota State, 1,504 yards and 12 TDs on the season at quarterback. You got Shamar Brown at running back, 544 rushing and 7 TDs. And you got Bryce Lance out there receiving for 418 and 5 Teddy Boys. You got Mark Gronowski leading South Dakota State with 1,105 passing yards with 11 TDs on the season. You got Amar Johnson, 480 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns for South Dakota, the Jackrabbits. You got Griffin Wild, baby. Griffin Wild, baby. 407 yards and 4 TDs for the Jackrabbits. This is going to be a great game in FCS, okay? Number 1 versus number 2. It don't get no bigger. It don't get no bigger. And it's for the conference. Let's go. Moving on to our next small school spotlight. We got 4-1 Dayton Flyers at Butler. 5-1. Butler suffered their first loss of the season last week to Drake. They looking to see if they can avoid a streak of the losing kind. They want to win. So we're going to see what they can do against Dayton, trying to make a name for themselves. Both teams receiving some votes. We're going to see what happens. You got Reagan Andrew leading Butler, 775 passing yards with 7 TDs on the season. Nick Howard, 348 yards rushing with 5 TDs, and Ethan Loss receiving 339 and 4 touchdowns on the season for Butler Bulldogs. You got Drew Van Vliet out there leading the Dayton Flyers at quarterback, 1,092 yards passing with 12 TDs on the season. You got Mason Hackett, 519 rushing and 2 TDs on the season. And you got Gavin LaChow, 304 yards receiving, 4 TDs for those Dayton Flyers. So that should be a good game right there. 4-1 Dayton, 5-1 Butler in FCS football. We're going to go to the last small school spotlight in the Colonial Athletic Conference, where these teams are always strong. They always have about 3 teams that can make the playoffs, if not a 4th, but they can only usually get 2. Conference winner and a runner-up. You got Delaware, they're 6-0. Going against number 15 Richmond Spiders, who's 4-2. Delaware, I couldn't find in the rankings anywhere. Not sure why they're not ranked at 6-0 in the Colonial Athletic Conference, but I'm going to find that out. That's my job. We're going to figure that out. Like I say, these teams always have strong teams within this conference. So Delaware 6-0. They're led by Ryan O'Connor. 879 yards passing, 8 TDs. You got Jonathan Silver running the rock for the Blue Hens, 337 and 4 TDs. And Phil Lutz leads the Blue Hens with 541 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns on the season. He got all the touchdowns catches for the Blue Hens. Then you got Richmond coming in 4-2, led by Camden Coleman, 671 yards passing, 2 TDs. Zach Palmer Smith, 744 yards, 5 TDs on the season rushing for the Spiders. Then you got Landon Ellis with 238 yards receiving and 1 touchdown for the Richmond Spiders. Delaware versus Richmond. Good game to watch. And those are our small school spotlights. Shine a light on them kids. Shine a light on them kids. Mark Gronowski, Cam Miller, Ethan Laws, Reagan Andrew, Mason Hackett, Jonathan Silver, Phil Lutz, Zach Palmer Smith. Shine a light on the small school guys. Let's go. Moving on to our favorite and last segment of the day. It's the Pick 10, where I pick 10 to win. Last week, we went 7-3 straight up, and we went 3-7 against the spread. So on the year, we are 13-7 on the season and 3-17 against the spread. Don't pick us against the spread, whatever you do. Here we go. The game of the week is Texas versus Georgia, so we're going to put that at the end. Number 2 pick is Oregon at Purdue. I got Oregon just way too much. Notre Dame trounced Purdue 66-7. I'm thinking Oregon might do something more than that. But look for Oregon to cover the spread. 52-7. Oregon. Book it. Miami at Louisville. Think this is going to be a close game, man. Think this is going to be a close game. Miami 31. Louisville 27. Book it. You got Alabama at Tennessee. Tennessee over Bama at home. 28-21. Bama. Trouble. Tuscaloosa? Oh my God. The 5th game, LSU at Arkansas. I think this is going to be a close game. I think these games are going to be some close games, kind of like 2 weeks ago when I started and it was all kind of upsets. I think some of this stuff could happen, so I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas pulls this one off. But I'm going LSU 28, Arkansas 24. Number 6 game, Iowa State versus UCF. Iowa State, just too much for UCF. Gonna be close to halftime, but I think Iowa State pulls away at the end. 27-13, Iowa State over UCF. Virginia at Clemson. Virginia has a head coach that used to coach for Dabo Swinney and Clemson. I think he's gonna have some insider information about what they like to do. They're gonna keep it close. Think they're gonna cover that spread, but it's a big spread, like 13 points. I like Clemson by 10. Clemson 31, Virginia 21. Then you got Notre Dame at Georgia Tech, the battle of the Golden Domes. I'm thinking Notre Dame is gonna falter at the Golden Dome down there. Georgia Tech been playing some good football, playing some tough football. They got a surprisingly good offense. Notre Dame is having injuries with the quarterback, and they got a cornerback out, and Georgia Tech got a great wide receiver. So we're going to see. I'm thinking Notre Dame going to squeak by 31-28, okay? Then we got Indiana at Nebraska. Nebraska pulls the upset over Indiana, 28-24 at home. Then we got Kansas State at West Virginia. These two teams always score a lot of points. Like I said, the over is 55. I think they're going to clear that pretty well. Kansas State, 35. West Virginia, 28. Our game of the week. We got number 1 Texas versus number 5 Georgia. Georgia. They ain't playing with them. That's going to be a great game. All these games going to be close. I'm thinking a field goal difference is going to be the difference. Texas, 27. Georgia, 24. Texas got too much defense. Georgia got too much offense. They're going to find somewhere to meet in the middle because Georgia defense just haven't been as dominant as we've known them to be. So I think the defense of Texas is what's going to allow them to get the win. 27-24 Texas over Georgia. There you have it, guys. Those are my pick 10. Like I say, we 13-7 straight up. We 3-17 against the spread. So straight up. Straight up. Appreciate y'all tuning in to another Sands and Friends podcast. This is your Week 8 College Sports Rundown.